Hello and welcome to another Wellness Wander. Today I'm on the rising path which looks out over onto our systematic beds. If you visit between now and autumn you'll get a chance to see all the great range of plants grown on these fantastic beds, which give you an opportunity to compare different plants and begin to understand a little bit about plant classification. Our walk today will take us through the beds, so follow me and we'll take a look. For this week's wander, I'm starting at the beginning of the plant classification tail here on the systematic beds. So beginning in the southwestern corner amongst the Ranunculaceae family, which has the simplest flower form. As we wander around the beds today, I'll take you around the outer wheel first, which are the dicotyledonous plants, those which when germinating have two true seed leaves. And then we'll finish up in the central monocotyledon section where plants have just one true seed leaf. But if we start off looking here at the Ranunculaceae, we can just see some of the last flowers of anemone tomentosa. Here showing the typical buttercup form that members of the buttercup or Ranunculaceae family have. So they will usually have opposite leaves and a regular flower, usually with 5 petals, as the anemone is showing. As we wander through this section, we'll see a number of other plant families, many having now gone past their best. As you can see, it's a very hot, bright day here in the garden, and things are really beginning to take the toll of this dry period and intense heat. We're just passing the cabbage family, Brassicaceae, and here flowers will tend to have just 4 petals in a cross form, cruciform, which is where this plant family got its original name, cruciferae, but now Brassicaceae for the cabbages. And passing beside us now, TROPAEOLUM majus, the NASTURTIUM, and just passing another plant family in this grouping, so one of the mallows. This is the marshmallow, ALTHAEA officinalis. So all the plants in this section of the beds, the thalamiflorae, have regular flowers with conspicuous petals, as you can see here when we look closely at this mallow. You can see very, very clearly the petals are independent of one another, but lovely flower. We're now going to head across into our next section, the caliciflorae. So we're now stood beside the fuchsia family, Onograceae, here in the caliciflorae section of the systematic beds. And plants here all have 3 petals, though they may be slightly joined at the base. But again, here in GAURA LINDHEIMERI, you can see the petals are very, very much independent of one another and aren't joined particularly. Just taking in one of the epilobiums, so one of the willow herbs. This is Epilobium flescheri, which gives lovely late summer interest. past this fascinating plant, Blumenbeckia insignis, which has very, very small flowers that you can see here. Again, 5 independent petals, very attractive, almost like a stinging nettle though, so very, very hairy leaves which can be irritating, but these fascinating seed pods which are almost swirls. And we're now going to head to take a look at the flowers of the peas. So here we are at the Spanish broom, Spartium junceum, and just looking at the flower here, which is rather more joined, and very, very typical of the peas, but it is a bilaterally symmetrical flower, so vertically symmetrical, and it has 5 sepals or petals and fruits as a pea, which you can see in the background here, fruits in pods, but the flowers also have a distinctive keel to them, which you can see here in the Spanish broom. And just taking a look at the carrot family, Apiaceae. So here we have DAUCUS carota, subspecies carota, which is the wild carrot, which has a typical flower head of members of this family. So tiny flowers massed into umbels that you can see here. So rather like an umbrella. And then in this species particularly, you get this fascinating seed pod, which just kind of almost brings all those flowers and their seeds up into this mass. It almost clenches, it's like clenching a fist just to protect everything, and you get this intriguing kind of network of seed. And we're just going to take a peek at one of the most fascinating of plants down here on the systematic beds. So this is a member of the cucumber family, ECBALLIUM ELATERIUM, the squirting cucumber. And if we just peer down in here, you can see or spy numerous fruits developing here, and as they ripen, these will explode in the heat to release the seed up to 10-20 meters away. It's got a fascinating seed dispersal mechanism. And crossing the beds, we're now heading into one of the largest of the flowering plant families. So this is the Asteraceae or daisy family. And plants here typically have alternate leaves and a very, very distinct flower form. So here in Dahlia coccinea, you can see the floral capitulum, which comprises a central disc floret, which are the yellow sections here, surrounded or surmounted by these gorgeous, brilliant crimson orange ray florets. And this is the typical flower form of the daisy. And this area particularly, and this family, is renowned for giving late interest here on the systematic beds. So always something to see from the height of summer right through into autumn. So we're going to finish our wander through this section just taking in the Scotch thistles, the onopordums and the globe thistles, which are all architectural and will continue to give interest right through into winter. We've now arrived in the cauliflory section of the beds. So here we are beside the Scrophulariaceae family and the verbascums. But we're going to take a look at one of the larger families here, the Lamiums, as we just skirt past the verbenas into Lamiaceae and past the lavenders, which are still full of flower, scent and bees foraging for nectar, just to take in the flowers of a member of the Lamiaceae. So here we are looking at Salvia elegans. And flowers in this section of the beds, the cauliflory, tend to usually be joined and fused, so have a tube, as you can see here, definitely in the flowers of this species. But also if you look closely, you can see that they're also two-lipped, so an upper and a lower portion of the flower, with the lower lip definitely being two parts, so almost divided. And again, this is a trait particularly of the Lamiaceae or mint family. And we're now in the last section of the dicotyledonous plants. So this is the monoclamidae section, and many of the flowers and plants here are past their best, so we're just wandering past the rhubarb family. But within this section of plantings, the flowers tend to be petalless or have much reduced flowers. So they're perhaps the most advanced, but florally least attractive of the flowers. But many, as you can see here in Euphorbia lathyrus, have explosive dehiscent fruit. So here you can see the fruits fattening, and when they get to a point of maturity and ripeness, they will automatically dehiss and disperse their seeds across the beds. And from here we're just going to wander into the monocotyledonous section, so the central whorl of the systematic beds. And perhaps one of the nicest sights at the moment is this wonderful planting of grasses, so all members of the Poaceae family. And just lovely to wander through and just drift your hands through. It's quite sensuous plantings and plants here that will continue to give interest throughout autumn, and much of it will remain through until winter. So the grass family, Poaceae, is one of the larger families of plants, but also one, or is the most important commercially, providing us with a great number of crop products, the wheats and the rices. Plants here are distinguished by their simple linear leaf and parallel veining, a leafless branch section or branch system, and a panicle that you can see here of spikelets. So rather than having true flowers, many of the grasses have what are referred to as spikelets. And this monocotyledonous section comprises a number of interesting plants. So other families within this section include the palms. So here we have Trachycarpus fortunei, the Chusson palm, which is highly architectural and has these beautiful deep fruits and fantastic palmate foliage. The irises belong to this group of plants, the monocotyledons, as do the red hot pokers, as you can see here, which are members of the Asphodelaceae. The largest of the grasses, the bamboos, can be seen here. So this is Phylostachys nigra. And coming to one of the last and latest of the flowering species down here on the systematic beds. So just as our last port of call today, taking in the Jersey lily, Amaryllis belladonna, which is a member of the Amaryllidaceae family, so the daffodil family. And these tend to be geophytic, so generally bulbous species, and are characterized by having their flowers in two almost whorls. So they'll have 6 petals in 2 whorls of 3, and usually having a strappy leaf. So I hope you've enjoyed today's wellness wander. It's been a hot, dry wander, and I hope you'll join me again next week for another look at what's looking good in the garden.